Hey listeners, welcome to another episode of Second Take Cinema, coming to you from the glorious Impala Films headquarters in sunny Southend-on-Sea. As always, I'm your host, Jamie Evans, joined by Mr. Rory Jocelyn.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen.
And today we are getting back in our time machines and we are going back to ye old year of 2000, the turn of the millennium, 2000, to give a second take to Malena. So today we are reviewing Malena from the year 2000. It's an Italian movie written and directed by Giuseppe Tornatore, with a story by Luciano Vincenzoni, starring Monica Bellucci and Giuseppe Solfaro. The film won the Grand Prix at the 2001 Caberg Film Festival and was nominated for 2 Oscars, Best Cinematography and Best Original Score. As I said, it was directed by Giuseppe Tornatore, and it was made for I don't actually have a budget, actually. I only have the gross, which was $14.4 million. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 54%, with the critical consensus reading, Malena ends up objectifying the character of the movie's title. Also, yeah, that's the point. We'll get to it. Also, the young boy's emotional investment with Malena is never convincing, as she doesn't feel like a three-dimensional person. Again, I would argue that's the point. We'll get there. David Rooney of Variety wrote, considerably scaled down in scope and size from his English-language existential epic, The Legend of 1900, Giuseppe Tornatore's Malena is a beautifully crafted but slight period drama that chronicles a 13-year-old boy's obsession with a small-town siren in World War II Sicily. Combining a coming-of-age story with the sad odyssey of a woman punished for her beauty, the film ultimately has too little depth, subtlety, thematic consequence, or contemporary relevance to make it a strong contender for art house crossover, but its erotic elements and nostalgic evocation of the same vanished Italy that made international hits out of Cinema Paradiso and Il Postino could supply commercial leverage.
Can we come back to the fact later, or not right now, of the fact that that guy called her a siren? She absolutely does not start that way.
Yeah, we can come back to that. Film critic Roger Ebert compared the film to the work of Federico Fellini, writing, Fellini's films often involve adolescents inflamed by women who embody their carnal desires, e.g., Amarcord and 8½. But Fellini sees the humour that underlies sexual obsession, except, usually but not always, in the eyes of the participants. Malena is a simpler story, in which a young man grows up transfixed by a woman and essentially marries himself to the idea of her. It doesn't help that the movie's action grows steadily gloomier, leading to a public humiliation that seems wildly out of scale with what has gone before, and to an ending that is intended to move us much more deeply, alas, than it can. So that's what the critics thought.
That sequence where she gets humiliated, we will get there. That feels earned in the script.
It did to me. Yeah, it didn't feel out of place to me.
No, it didn't feel like, hang on, how did we get here? It felt completely, I knew how we got here. I mean, we've watched a few films just this season, including things like Man of Steel, where we're like, how did we get here? What's going on now? That never happened in this film.
No.
I always knew exactly where we were and what we were doing, and it's a foreign language film, so if we should have been confused by any of them, it should have been this one.
Yeah.
But no, it's very, in terms of the way it's edited together and how the story progresses, it seems absolutely fine to me in that film.
Yeah, I thought so too. But anyway, we're going to talk about that in just one moment. But first, it's time to test Rory's knowledge. So, Rory, Malena was nominated for 2 Oscars, including Best Cinematography, at the 73rd Academy Awards. Unfortunately, it did not win.
Is that in the 2000s, or is
That's
that 2000 or 2001? Because it came out in 2000, but often the Oscars are the year later.
So this will be the year later, yeah. It'll be honouring the films from 2000.
Right, gotcha.
I'm going to name you 10 awards that year, and you're going to tell me which film won them.
In 2001?
In 2000, yes. So the films will all be from 2000.
Okay, right.
Okay. So, as I said, for number 10, this was nominated for Best Cinematography, but it didn't win. What did win Best Cinematography that year? And I'll give you a hint, because I think it's rare that they let these types of films win it. It is a foreign language film.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
It is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Well done. Question 9. What won Best Makeup that year?
It would be one of the Lord of the Rings films?
It is not. It is, in fact, How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
With Mr. Timothy Carey.
Yeah. I would never have guessed that, and I should have done, I know, but I just never would have done.
That's all right. This one I'm not sure you're going to get, because this actress, I guarantee you'd recognise her, but she's not a household name, and I've never heard of the film.
Oh.
Who won Best Supporting Actress?
So this is going to have to be a bit of a shot in the dark.
The film is Pollock, as in Jackson Pollock.
Oh, okay.
The actress is Marcia Gay Harden. Okay, same year, who won Best Supporting Actor?
Best Supporting Actor.
Obviously, it's a male we're looking for this time. This actor is much more well-known. They've been in lots and lots of things. Credits include The Usual Suspects,
Right.
Wolfman, and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Bradley Cooper?
I'm afraid not. It's Benicio del Toro.
Oh, wow,
For the film Traffic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, this one I think you will get. Best Foreign Film that year.
Well, I'm going to guess that would be Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
It is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Well done. Okay, Best Original Screenplay that year.
Best Original Screenplay?
Yes, so not adapted, original. He's quite a well-known writer. I think he may be dead now. I certainly haven't seen him write anything in a little while. He wrote one of my all-time favourite movies, though, Vanilla Sky.
Yeah, I don't know who the writer was.
The film stars Heather Graham.
And it's not an adapted, I know. Is it? It's not a sequel to something.
No,
it's a completely original IP.
piece, yeah.
I'm going to be honest, I don't think I'm going to get this one.
No.
No.
The writer is Cameron Crowe.
Okay.
For the film Almost Famous.
I would never have guessed that, but that's cool.
Number 4, who won Best Actor that year?
Oh, Christ, it's Gladiator.
Russell Crowe for Gladiator.
Yeah.
Well done. Number 3, who won Best Actress that year?
Russell Crowe in Gladiator. Best Actress. Is it an adaptation?
I'll be honest, I don't know. Technically, yes, it's based on a true story, I believe, if I remember right. The title is 2 words, and it is the name of the main character. I also know that this film is referenced in the... You're a fan of Andy Samberg sometimes.
Yeah.
The Lonely Island song Jack Sparrow makes reference to this film.
Oh, see, I do know that song. This is the tale of
Captain Jack Sparrow. I'm not going to let you sing the whole song through your head, though.
Bridget Jones?
Erin Brockovich.
Oh, bollocks!
Julia Roberts as Erin Brockovich. Right, number 2. Who won Best Director that year? Now, I will say, this probably gives it away too much, but I don't think it does. It's the same director who directed the film that Benicio del Toro won for.
Oh, okay.
And it's a director who I think is quite underrated. I think the reason he's underrated is, unlike people like Tarantino, he's a chameleon. He's worked in...
So it's not, he hasn't got a single genre or anything.
No, he's worked in many different many different genres, many different styles. Some of his films are amazing. Some of them, he's got hits and misses.
James Gunn?
It's Steven Soderbergh.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see your point.
Done loads of films,
yeah.
but for some reason never gets brought up in conversation.
Yeah.
And the final question, fairly easy this one. What won Best Picture?
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
No. That won Best Foreign Film. It was Gladiator. Oh, sorry there. I thought you'd got that one in the bag. Well, that is 3 correct for you out of 10.
Yay!
So
getting better.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Not fucking less than 50%.
Hey, I'm just glad I ain't going to be watching Kill Keith this year.
Mm.
And with that, it's the end of our quiz this episode. That means it's time to talk about Malena after these commercials. Okay, so we're back. We're talking Malena. Now, Malena is a film I added to the list, and I first saw this. This was actually recommended to me by someone. I was on a film shoot. I was shooting my short film, It Starts With a Girl, in 2018, I think, summer 2018. We shot a short film in my little bedroom, called It Starts With a Girl. It worked out okay, not great. And one of the ladies that I had on there helping, she was doing hair and makeup. We were just talking about film while she was doing my hair, and somehow Malena came up. I'd never even heard of it, but she recommended it to me, and I went to HMV about a week later, and it was one of those like glitch in the Matrix moments where something you've never heard of,
Never seen,
someone mentions it, and then I walk into HMV and it's right there in front of me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, here we go then. Why not? And I watched it probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. And it stuck with me. Not all of it. There were bits of it I'd forgotten.
Yep.
But the scene that we'll get to, the public humiliation scene, that stuck with me. Because it was brutal, quite frankly.
It is brutal. We will come to that in a little bit, because I think there's a lot to discuss about that scene when we reach it.
So you weren't familiar with this film at all?
Never heard of it before.
No. Okay.
To be honest, I think the only thing I'd seen Monica Bellucci in prior to this...
Matrix Revolutions?
And
Reloaded?
Yeah, Reloaded and Revolution. She's in both.
Yeah.
And I knew she was meant to be famous. And Spectre.
Right, yeah.
Because I'm fairly certain she has the claim as the oldest Bond girl.
Right.
And let's be honest, she's not old.
No.
And she's still hot.
Yeah.
You know? She's the best thing in Spectre.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mostly because the guy who plays Blofeld,
Christoph Waltz,
is phenomenal. The problem is the script change destroyed the role.
Right.
And it's very evident his character is the one that sucks the most because of that. Whereas Monica Bellucci's character is, I think, relatively unchanged. Right. I don't know that as a fact, but it at least
seems
because she's not the key villain. It doesn't seem she doesn't come out as badly.
Is she a villain or is she a good guy? Or will that spoil it for me?
I don't think it will spoil it as such. She's one. I think she's more of a victim character because she's with she's working with and for Blofeld to a degree, but it's very much clear that it's under duress.
Okay.
So yeah, and they've done that a few times in the Daniel Craig Bonds when there's a bad girl or a villain girl or a Bond girl. They did this. I think it was in Skyfall. There's a girl. It's the creepy bit of Skyfall. The one horrific scene in it when he misses the boat with the woman who tells him she's been raped, and then
remember this.
He appears in the shower naked with her and starts kissing her, even though she's told him like she thinks he's missed the boat.
I don't remember any rape in Skyfall.
It's not rape.
You just said rape.
She says she was raped prior.
I don't remember. I don't remember the word rape being said at all in Skyfall.
So there's a girl that is she's the one who when they get to the island that the boat is going to, she gets killed by the villain.
Oh, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't rate Skyfall as highly as a lot of people do.
Right.
The only bit I remember in it is I think there's a bit where a subway car crashes through a subway tunnel.
Right.
And the bit where Javier Bardem takes half of his face out.
Yeah. Javier Bardem, there's some really gorgeous bits to Skyfall. It's definitely worth a rewatch, maybe on this channel, maybe, I don't know. Or just in general.
But I'm behind on Bond films. I haven't seen Spectre or No Time to Die yet.
No Time to Die, I'd say, is worth it, except the villain is poor, and that's not Rami Malek's fault. He's given nothing to do.
Yeah. And isn't it like a 3-hour runtime? It's like, you're telling me you couldn't find something for the villain to do in a 3-hour runtime.
You can tell that the reason the villain is bland in it is that basically he's an afterthought. Yeah. Which is not a good start. I will say the thing that pulls No Time to Die through for me is that they focus so much on Bond and giving him character development.
Right.
Which is a first for Bond.
We've waited for the last film to do this.
Yeah, I think it was I think that was Daniel Craig's reason to return. He was like, I'll only return if you give me a story worth doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's Bond.
Yeah, we're talking about Malena.
Yeah. So that all I was saying was that's all I've really seen her in before. It's nice to see her in something where she's not basically speaking English, where she's in
her native language.
Well, I say her native language, but according to some of this trivia,
is she not Italian?
Well, she is, but they're speaking Sicilian. So, which is a very different dialect. So she had to kind of relearn a slightly different form of Italian, which is Sicilian. Right. So it's not exactly her native language per se.
Okay.
While it's still obviously again, it's one of those things. It's the bulk of the language is the same, but there's slight differences. I suppose some could say similar to English and American. You know, overall, it's mostly the same language, but we sound different, and there are some words that are not shared.
Yeah.
Or different, like
autumn. So for those who aren't familiar, I'll give you a quick rundown of the plot, because I'm aware this isn't like a widely known film. No. So this is set in World War II era Italy, in Sicily specifically. I think the village was called Casacuto or something like that.
Something like
Casacuto.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is the height of the Mussolini regime, fascism's everywhere, etc. And we follow a young boy named Renato, who is 13, and he's sort of at that age where he's really wanting to, speed up and grow up and, be treated like a man, but he's still a boy. And he joins a gang of youths, and they bond over ogling a very beautiful girl played by Monica Bellucci, Malena. And what we come to understand is that Malena is essentially the object of lust for practically every man in this small town.
Yeah, her husband is away at war.
He's gone off to war, and the object of envy of all the women in the town.
Yeah, they're all talking shit about her behind her back. I hear that she's this, that she... like, she sleeps around, she's been fucking this guy, this guy, and this guy.
And even the men as well, because the men are like, I heard she's doing the dentist, that means we've all got a chance, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm using the word object very specifically here, and I will get to that later.
Very much, I think it's very apt for where the society shown in this film is going.
Reports come back that her husband has died in battle. And they do a big funeral, a big announcement, and this intensifies the aura of mystery around Malena, because all the men are now like, well, she's going to need someone to comfort her, she's going to need...
All the men suddenly think they've got a chance because she's a widow and she's going to be sad, and all the women are even worse, like, she's going to be after our men.
Yeah. This gets worse when one night a soldier is caught leaving her house.
Yep.
And she is accused of adultery, which it turns out is actually a crime at this point. She gets put on trial.
Yeah.
She does get away with this because she says it was just a friend, and when...
It's because he says it was just a friendship.
He sends a response in, doesn't he, where he says she's just a casual friend, which actually seems to hurt her a little bit.
Yeah, so I think they probably did have sex.
Yeah.
But he's then... to save his own goose for whatever reason, he's just like, no, we'll just make saw her twice, don't care.
In the meantime, the lawyer who represented her in the trial rapes her.
Yes.
As payment.
Yeah, because he even says no amount of money you could give me would be enough. Yeah. There's only one type of payment I want, and then he forces himself upon her.
She's got no money because her husband is dead, and she is also the carer for her deaf father.
Yeah.
So the father does work, but I gather doesn't earn a lot of money.
Yeah.
So he rapes her. Meanwhile, Renato, who's been being a dirty little perv this whole time, perving on her, takes it upon himself to be her...
isn't he?
Yeah. He takes it upon himself to be her protector. And he goes to the church and sort of says to this statue, "Oh, I'll come and pray every day if you protect Malena." And he starts carrying out petty acts of revenge against people who slag her off.
Which ends up being a full-time job, basically.
Yeah, he pees in one woman's handbag, he spits in a guy's drink.
Yep.
And what's interesting here is this is obviously... I'll finish the plot quickly, but we'll come back to this, is how he thinks he's the good guy, but actually he's not.
Yeah.
Because he still is just... He's seeing an idealised version... Because, he shares no lines with Malena until right at the end when he picks the oranges up for her.
Yeah.
That's the only time they actually talk to each other.
Yeah, even in his dream sequences, I don't think they share any lines.
No, and she's never actually Malena in the dream sequences. No. She's always an idealised version of Malena. Because he keeps seeing himself in movies, doesn't he? Like swinging through a jungle or in a wagon train.
Yeah, there's a couple where he imagines himself with her, not just as a film version of her. Like when she first leaves her husband's funeral and she's crying on her bed and he's peeping at her through not a keyhole, but I think it's a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
He then imagines himself coming in and kissing her and that sort of thing, and that is obviously meant to be her. But we find out very quickly, by the way it's edited, that it's a dream sequence. It's not really happening. He's basically a terrible perv.
Yeah.
He doesn't really get his due per se on that, but he's not only been spying on her and being voyeuristic. There's a point where he steals some of her pants.
Yes.
Steals her knickers and then goes to sleep
with them on his head.
And then his dad comes into work and his dad is so brutal. Just literally pulls him a "What's this?" And he goes, "Oh, it's a French hat." It's not a French hat, and starts beating him.
On Wikipedia, this is listed as a erotic comedy thriller.
It's not comedy.
The only comedy is his dad.
Yeah. Because
his dad's playing a cartoon character.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's only funny because it looks like a cartoon in the way it's being done.
All his movements, like because there's a bit where he slaps Renato across the face.
Yeah.
But it's such an over-the-top cartoon slap.
I think it helps with the shape of his dad, because his dad is very tall and thin.
Very tall and lanky, isn't he? With quite a big head, like his head looks quite big on his shoulders.
Yeah,
sort of
so
thing.
when his arms move like that, it's almost like an object moving rather than a human body.
Yeah.
Which, and to be fair to the actor, he obviously knows how to sell the comedy of his physicality.
Yes.
And he sells that very well. In what would otherwise be, you'd be watching there going, "What the fuck?" It's like, because it is brutal.
Yeah.
The amount, and he not only beats the son, sometimes he's slapping his wife, sometimes he's slapping his daughter. And it's always somewhat funny in the way it's delivered, which is very hard to do, certainly nowadays in modern sensibility. We don't view, certainly slapping girls and women, we don't find that funny anymore. No. It's questionable that we ever did. Because by this point, obviously, Once Were Warriors was out. But that, again, the way it's filmed is very different.
Yeah.
Tamira Morrison in Once Were Warriors is not shown to be comedic in the way he beats his wife. Whereas in this, because it's slapping as well rather than punching and brutal beating, it comes across funnier.
Yeah.
That's something that might be worthy of study in a weird way. It's just how you can portray a similar physical motion, but in one side it comes off really dramatic, and in the other way it comes off quite comedic.
Yeah. So to finish summing up the plot, at this point there is a bombing, and her father dies. So Malena now has nobody. And she does say something about they've cut her pension, her state pension.
Yeah, I think because she's got no connection to the state. And I assume maybe because it's fascism, women have no real rights to claim money.
Probably something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So she basically finds a soldier who's willing to give her some food. And when she says, "I don't know, I'm going to pay you for this," he basically puts the idea in her head of turning to prostitution.
Yeah.
Given that she's so good looking and everyone wants to be with her.
Yeah.
So she turns to prostitution, which eventually leads to her also prostituting for the Nazis.
Yeah, so she's sleeping with the Nazis.
Yeah, which, bear in mind, Italy are on the Nazis' side, so that's not as big a leap as if she was, say, British and started sleeping with the Nazis. So basically, obviously, Hitler and the Nazis lose the war, and on the day that the Allied troops parade through the streets of this town, it's almost like this pressure that's been building suddenly reaches its boiling point, and the women of the town are like, "Right, let's go get this whore." because there ain't no Germans to protect her anymore. And they drag her out into the square.
Yep.
No one does anything to help her, and they beat her bloody and cut all her hair off.
What's interesting is there's no blokes involved in this. They're all cowards. They all stand there
none of the
watching.
blokes physically hit her.
Yeah, and
none of them help.
Several of them are covering their eyes. Like, oh, this is horrific. Like they're not happy to see it. But again, still cowardice, not stopping it. It's all the women.
Yes, all the men are. Yeah, the men's crime. We'll get to that. Let me finish the plot.
Sure.
She gets run out of town. It then turns out her husband did not die. He was just very badly wounded. Yeah. He lost an arm. He comes back into town and is looking for Malena, and no one in the town will tell him where she is. They won't tell him what happened.
Yeah.
Renato tells him, he writes him a letter, doesn't he? Yeah. Confessing to his own cowardice, but telling him she's gone to Messina. He goes to Messina and we skip ahead a year. He comes back with Malena and immediately whispers start. Wow, how dare she show her face here again? Yeah. But what they notice is Malena is different now. Whereas earlier in the film, Malena walks through. There's plenty of sequences of her walking through the streets. Yeah. It's in these lovely dresses. Her legs are out, very fashionable. Her hair is long and flowing. She's got makeup on. She's head held high. Just, not bothering anyone, but confident.
No. Yeah.
Now she's demure, she's meek, she's in muted greys, she's in a long skirt, a cardigan.
She's dressed more like an older lady.
Yeah, she's always got her eyes on the ground.
Yeah.
And the women who chased her out of town still can't resist getting digs in where they say things like, oh, no, she's looking a bit wrinkly around the eyes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even though there's no difference in her, it's just them putting that on her.
Yeah.
And they start being super nice to her and giving her free things in the market, which is...
And it's almost like penance, isn't it?
It's almost like they're massaging their own guilt.
Yeah.
But also only because they've won. They've beaten her.
Yeah, because they say
she's them.
She's less of a threat.
Yes.
She's not turning the men's eye because she's not dressed in a certain way. She's not acting confident in a way that a woman shouldn't, and all this sort of really outdated shit.
What I want to start with then, because that's the plot.
Yeah.
What I want to start with is to say that, first of all, what's so fascinating about this film, because from that plot, it kind of, you hear this thing and it's a bit like, oh, the women in this film are evil. I want to be very clear, everyone in this film is bad.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. I think that's what's interesting about it is, the fact that the women are the ones that physically beat her shows a horrible, nasty side to the women. But let's not forget, prior to this point, we've had at least one full-on
confirmed rape.
And the others where she's been basically pushed into having sex with people under duress because otherwise she's going to starve to death.
Yeah. And let's not forget, what this film is about, to me, it is about the objectification of beauty.
Yeah.
Malena,
how dare she be beautiful?
Yeah, quite rightly, as this as the review said, Malena almost is an object more than a character, and usually, obviously, we would call that bad writing.
Yeah.
In this case, I think that's very deliberate, because the point is we're seeing the story through the eyes of Renato, and actually, although he's our protagonist, and although he wants to defend Malena, he is just as guilty of objectifying her as everyone else is.
Yeah.
He only wants to help her because she's hot. He knows nothing about her as a person, so he doesn't truly care for her. He's not truly in love with her. He just thinks she's beautiful.
Yeah. And he's even his own fantasies of helping her always end in him getting a physical reward of some kind.
Yes.
So he's just as bad as the lawyer who, does a grand gesture, stand up for her in court against all odds to save her.
But now give up your body.
Now your body is what is the payment.
Yeah. And the biggest thing you get for Renato that shows this, and it's very sad because it shows the ingrained sexism of the fascist era, is after she gets raped by the lawyer, Renato sees this. He sees the rape, doesn't he?
Yeah, because he's watching through the window, isn't he? And I think he's only spared seeing the whole thing because the tree breaks and he hurts his legs.
He goes into the church crying and injured, and he says, it's not her fault.
No, he says he forgives her.
He forgives her, that's it. He forgives her. She did what she had to do, or something like that. And it's like, no. She was raped.
Yeah.
She did not choose to do this.
Yeah. And
there's nothing to forgive for her.
Again, this is one downside I will say about this film. This kid never gets any, like, just desserts for being, A, a voyeuristic piece of shit.
Yeah.
B, objectifying her exactly the same as everyone else. In fact, he's kind of a semi-hero because because of his voyeurism, he was able to give the information to the husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is never really a punishment for this. And again, like, as you say, like, I forgive her for being raped.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
Like,
And to be fair, none of the men get punished. The doctor gets away with it, doesn't he? The lawyer, sorry.
yeah, this is not an entertaining film.
This is not it. There are no heroes and villains in the traditional sense.
There are villains.
What I mean is there's bad characters. There are bad characters.
Yeah.
But there's not villains in the sense of this is not a film where it's like, oh, this is Superman, this is Lex Luthor. We know at the end of the film Lex Luthor will be in jail and Superman will be victorious. It's not that.
I'm fairly certain we can assume the Nazis are Lex Luthor.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's much more grey.
Yeah.
And it's much more about...
I'm not sure it's grey. I actually think they're almost... I don't know about her, because, again, she's more of an object than she is a fully rounded character. But most of those people we see, all the men and all the women, they're almost 100% villains.
Yeah. The exceptions are like her dad, obviously.
Yep.
Well, no, just a harmless old deaf man.
Yeah. To be fair, yeah.
Who dies in a bombing. Her husband.
Her husband's probably the closest thing to a hero the film has.
And what you kind of get is this one, I felt, really good sort of example of how hysteria can build in a small town environment.
Yeah.
How a lot of these people, I'm sure, don't think of themselves as villains. They don't think there's anything wrong. The men, when they're all sitting around talking about, oh, she's got a great ass, and I heard she fucked the lawyer and fucked the doctor and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They don't think they're doing anything wrong. But what they are doing as the film goes on is, imagine it like a cauldron bubbling.
Yeah.
And they're turning the heat up. Yeah. Over and over again.
And each one, apart from the odd couple, each of their little turn-ups aren't really a lot, don't really make much odds, but all added up together.
Yeah.
As I say, this is barring a few acts like the rape and things like that, which are obviously a big turn-up on abuse.
Yeah.
But and the actual, beating her in the streets and that sort of thing.
But that's all. So that is caused by all of the slow turn-ups that the men do.
That's right.
Because every time the wives overhear the men being like, "Oh, look at Malena's ass" or something like that, their jealousy increases.
Yeah.
And their envy of her increases.
Yeah. It's definitely about objectification. There's no getting around that. Because that's the point of the film, I think. So I do want to say, I think we watched the UK and US cut.
Oh, is there a different cut?
Yes, and I'm glad we watched the UK-US cut.
Oh, God.
So the UK-US cut is 92 minutes. So the uncut Italian version is 108 minutes. So there's 16 minutes cut. I'll tell you this first. So although Renato is 12 years old in the film, Giuseppe Silfaro was 15 years old when the film was in production.
Okay. Still not great.
So now this sequence.
Okay.
In the extent... So there's a point where Renato is so horny that the priest thinks the devil is within him.
Yes.
He's hornied himself into sickness.
Yes.
And the dad is... To be fair to the dad, this is the one time the dad's fucking right in the film. He's like, he's not possessed, he's just horny.
Yeah, he's a teenage boy. The problem is he then takes his son to a whorehouse, doesn't he?
Yeah, and and the son can select any of the whores there, and the one he picks is the one who physically resembles Malena the most. She's not a 1-to-1, but she's actually pretty...
She's tall with dark hair.
And a similar build. And obviously, when that scene is playing, we get, like... When we see a prostitute that he's paid for... Between cuts, it switches between being the actress who plays the prostitute and
Monica Bellucci.
Yeah. So, we know he's thinking of her, he's not thinking of the prostitute. So let me put this in here for you and explain this. This should explain why I'm happy we didn't watch the full version. In the extended version of the brothel scene, the prostitute gets on top of Renato after she undresses and begins kissing and licking his right nipple and kisses him down his upper torso and performs oral sex on him, which ends the scene. This child is 15 during this sequence.
So I assume she's not actually sucking his dick.
I do not know, but
I hope she's not.
The fact that got cut suggests that we probably saw more than
We should, yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, this is something that happens a lot, I find, in European films. I think because age of consent varies from country to country. I know at one point, if not still currently, the age of consent is like 14 in France.
Right.
I think that's changed, or I don't know. I know it has varied before, and to be fair, it varies throughout history as it is.
Yeah, for all we know, there wasn't an age of consent at the time this is set. For all we know,
Yeah,
I haven't looked it up.
Yeah, but I find this something.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable because a lot of European films, I find it's mostly European films, focus on voyeurism in this sexual context. In a let's be honest, sexual gratification way. Not just voyeurism as in, I wonder what they're doing next door, like in a shit neighbourhood watch. Yeah. This is proper, I'm watching this one because I want to crank one out while I'm watching her. And it's usually with children looking up to older people, which I understand is, when you're in your adolescence, those hormones come up. You have those fancying for people who are older than you, generally more so than people your own age.
Yeah.
The thing is and this may be a bit of a controversial question. My controversial question on this is, do we need to see it? It's, the thing is, this story, I think, is a good story.
Yeah.
Overall. Outside of the one negative I'd give it, which is he does not get any recompense back to him for the fact that he is this voyeuristic scumbag.
Yeah.
The thing is, the fact that they felt that they could film what sounds like actual sex on a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do not like.
No, I mean, I think we see plenty in the cut that we have.
Yeah,
it's very
quite
obvious
graphic.
What's going to happen. We don't need to see more than we see at all.
It makes me wonder. Bear in mind that you and I, we write and direct. I know not on this level, but we write and direct.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine, for myself at least, sitting down to write a sequence such as ones in this film, such as going, right, I need a group of 15-year-old boys. I want them comparing willies, and at one point, because one of them thinks one of them's lying, I think, or they start getting in a fight about, one of them tries to pull the pants off the other one and see the other one's willy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to film that with 15-year-old boys. But that happens in this film.
So, I'm not saying this makes it right, but I've just looked it up just to say the age of consent in Sicily is 14. Oh. I'm not saying that makes it right. I'm just saying I thought it was interesting to look it up. So technically, in their country, they didn't break any laws. It still doesn't feel right to us.
No.
Now, to be fair, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume it's not actual sex that was filmed. I imagine if it was actual sex that was filmed, this film would have a much worse reputation.
But it might not, because that cut was only seen in Italy.
Yeah, it might not. But it also might. Yeah. And to be fair, it might have done, because have you seen who the producer on this film was?
No.
Mr. Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, good Mr. Weinstein.
I'm assuming he sort of came in at the end and bought the rights to
in.
I'm assuming, because it's got an Italian producer as well. I assume the Italian producer actually did all the work. I imagine Weinstein came in at the end. He's probably the one who saw it at the festival and went, I'll buy that.
Yeah, he probably threw some money at it, going, give me distribution if I help fund some of it.
He probably threw up some money and went, film me some extra scenes of Monica Bellucci topless. That's probably what he did.
Probably.
That's a Weinstein thing to do.
Send me the rushes.
Anyway.
Yeah, that is the one massive negative of this film.
It's such a... it's such a hard topic these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is, because on the one hand, I do not think films should stray away from
Any topic.
difficult source material.
Sure.
And unfortunately, things like this happen.
Yeah.
There are cases of children losing their virginity to hookers.
Yeah, it's not so much
But
that the idea
I agree
is there.
with you.
Yeah.
One, if it is unsimulated sex, it's 100% wrong.
Yeah.
Assuming it was simulated, the blowjob, I still think we didn't need to, personally, I wouldn't have shot it. I think what we've got in this cut is more than enough for us to know what happened.
I want to add this on that prostitution scene as well.
She
Giuseppe
had
Solfaro was actually naked in the sex scene between Renato and Lupetta, and Lupetta the prostitute, and no body double was used.
Right. He was actually full nude. Okay, yeah, that's a little dodgy to me. I'm
now
not
here's the
comfortable
thing:
with that.
you can argue, as you say, in Sicily, the age of consent is 14.
Yeah, they haven't
Therefore,
technically broken the law.
because even though he's meant to be like 13, he's 15. It's legal. It's fine, right? And this is where we're going to get into a bit of dodgy ground, I think, as things move forward further, and we look at things in a more global sense.
Yeah.
Because
It's not the age of consent everywhere.
yeah, and the other side of that as well is the ones it's gonna affect most of films like this, which in a way is realistically it's a coming of age film. Coming of age films where you explore, what is it like to first explore your sexuality or first explore, those are gonna be the ones hardest hit, because where we don't have a global age of consent, like the age of consent in the UK is 16.
Yeah.
Whereas in America, it's 18.
Yeah.
So if you have a sex scene and you have, like, whether it's actual sex or not, like, doesn't matter really in terms of legality. In the UK, if you have a 16-year-old actress or actor performing in a sex scene and is fully nude, in the UK, that's legal. You try and show that in America,
It's illegal.
it's illegal. And in a way, that's kind of what this would be.
Yeah,
Where it's a 15-year-old boy. In Sicily, that's legal. You try to show that in the UK or America, no way, boy, no. It's... Those films are going to be the hardest hit, which is why I think filmmakers need to be smarter with how they film things. They do, we don't need to see the physical act even.
And to be fair, I think this is why now, because it wouldn't have been the case when this was made,
Yeah.
but now it's pretty much, I think, standard practice that you have to have intimacy coordinators on shoots now.
This was the year 2000, so it wouldn't have been.
No, this has only been the last few years I've been hearing about intimacy coordinators,
But
which I think is a good step towards
Sure.
making it safer.
But the thing that I always find confusing is we've seen many films that have just adult actors. And you get, you can show heat and passion between characters. But when it comes to intimate sexual acts, they're suggested. And you don't lose anything for that. You don't need to see them grinding away for 6 hours. Lucky boy.
I'll tell you though,
you know what I mean?
I told you though, this is a European thing.
Yeah.
Do you know the director Lars von Trier?
I've heard of him.
Danish, I think, or Dutch. He loves to show sex in his films, as in detail, way beyond the details we need.
Sure.
In the film Antichrist, you see full penetration between Willem Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsborough. Now, fair enough, he brought in doubles, porn stars, to play the lower halves.
Yeah.
But the point is, you see it enter on camera in a film that came out in mainstream cinemas.
But that's what porn's for.
Yes. What I'm saying is, this is a weird thing. And I know, before anyone says anything, I know Britain is European as well. We're part of the European continent.
We're very separate in culture in certain ways.
We have always been very separate.
Yeah.
If you go back and study history, Britain has always been oddly separate. It's both part of Europe and not part of Europe, and part of that is our own stupid self-importance.
Yeah, of course.
Where we're like, well, we've got our empire, blah blah blah, and look, we're friends with America, blah blah blah. And part of it is simple geography of we are not connected to the mainland. And back in the day, before we had the ease of access travel that we've got now, like planes, and before like the Channel Tunnel was built and stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, what evolved on the mainland was different to what evolved
Yeah.
on the island. Rome's a great thing to look at for that, actually, because the Roman Empire obviously is based on the mainland, but conquered Britain. Roman Britain is not the same as the main Italian Roman Empire.
No, it's not.
Because in order to get the native Brits, the Celts, to behave, they had to modify elements of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
To get them on board, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
And Rome was very good at doing that. That's how Rome got as big as it did, is they'd move into new places.
And they'd adapt.
And they would adapt. They would merge the local culture into their culture and then Romanize it.
Yeah.
As opposed to turning up and just going, right, you're not doing that anymore, you're not doing that anymore, now you're doing this.
Yeah, it made it easier to assimilate cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. It's a very dodgy topic.
Talking of Rome, swinging it away from the dodgy zone that we were just in, something interesting came up where in this... I was surprised at first that Monica Bellucci, or at least her character in this, Malena, bleaches and dyes her hair red, and then it goes to blonde. And I went... I'll be honest, this is my ignorance, I did not realise that people were able to bleach their hair then, let alone actually did it. Obviously, it's not common. Maybe into bleach blonde, but it's certainly not with colours like red.
It definitely wasn't done. I think when I looked it up, I think the modern way of doing it, I think, was only invented in the 1950s, I think.
Sure.
But there have been ways all through history of doing it.
Yeah, and you stated... you then told me something about the Roman Empire and the choice of hair colouring.
Yeah, so
which might... bear in mind that this is an Italian film, it's probably...
relevant, yeah. So just according to a website I found, I didn't check their sources, but they claimed that dyeing hair goes back as far as the Roman Empire, and it was very common in the Roman Empire for prostitutes to dye their hair blonde, and that was sort of a way. Do you like the stereotype now is it's the red lights in the windows?
Yeah,
that's where red light district comes from.
Yeah.
The stereotype back then apparently was blonde women.
Right.
Which kind of sucks if you're naturally blonde.
So the other part I wanted to talk about, and obviously you can bring in anything you want as well, is the shaming scene.
Yes.
So we've talked about how obviously she gets pulled out, she gets dragged through the streets, beaten, and humiliated. Something that I found quite interesting, bear in mind this was made in 2000, the closest thing in pop culture I know of to this, and it was massive at the time, was in Game of Thrones, when Cersei Lannister is dragged through the streets, she's stripped naked, but she's not actually beaten in quite the same way as this.
I think they're whipping her.
But I mean, it's not the same as this. This is a little bit more brutal looking, because they beat her face.
They are punching her and kicking her.
Yeah.
And when they cut her hair off, they're not doing it very carefully, because they actually cut her head a few times.
Oh, jeez.
When she stands up, you can see like patches of blood.
Yeah. And yeah, it is incredibly brutal. In a way that actually affected me more than the Cersei Lannister scene, even though I saw that first.
Yeah.
The ding ding shame. They don't do the bell and shouting shame. It's the only thing that's missing. But yeah, I thought that was interesting because of how much of an impact that made. I wonder how much that scene was influenced by this film.
Could be.
I don't know when the book was written, obviously. So if the book came before this film, then it may be the other way round.
No. By the time that happens in the book, no, that one would have come out in the 2000s.
Right. So it's possible that scene, even in its novel form, was influenced by this film.
Yeah.
They are very, very similar.
Yeah. It's a very harrowing scene, and what strikes me about it is, all the men have lusted after this woman. They've all talked about how they'd do anything to be with her, etc.
Yeah.
Not one of them is...
None of them will even raise a voice.
What's the word I'm looking for? Chivalrous. None of them are chivalrous enough to stand up for her. Yeah. None of them are decent enough to so much as say anything to try and calm their wives down. And
even after the beating, none of them cover her up with anything.
No, and what you notice, at least I found... Obviously, we've already talked about how this film objectifies Monica Bellucci to an extent because it's it's from the point of view of the people objectifying her. And she's obviously a very attractive woman, Monica Bellucci. What I find interesting, and I think is intentional, when they drag her out and beat her, her breasts are out.
Yeah.
They're out for that whole scene.
Yeah.
But it is not.
Well, because they've ripped her dress, so there's nothing to support them.
But there is nothing. And her breasts have been exposed previously in the film, and it's always been treated as a very sort of
sexy.
Oh, we got a snatch of a breast or a glimpse of this, or there is nothing lustful about this.
No,
like it's
just
raw and sad and hideous.
Yeah.
And this shame, I feel like you could feel the shame already descending on the town.
Yeah, that they've marked themselves. Bear in mind, this follows a previously glorious scene where the Americans have come to liberate them, and everyone's cheering. Everyone's like, "Yeah, everything's gonna be great now." Like this, there's this huge positive vibe.
Yeah.
Everything's about to get better. The fascism's gone. Things are gonna get better.
But the negative needs releasing.
Yeah, and then the immediate next scene is, since everything's gonna be better, let's teach this bitch a lesson. Get her out.
The only reason we couldn't get her because she was palling up to the Germans.
Yeah, and they would have.
But they're gone now. The Americans have turned up and got rid of them.
Yep. It is a harrowing scene. It's probably the most harrowing scene of the film, though there are several to pick from, to be fair.
The rape scene's really bad as well.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, it's not a graphic rape scene. You don't see the rape itself.
No, you just see him push himself on her.
Him chasing her up the stairs.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Very intense. And the fact it's all filmed, that whole bit is filmed from the POV of the voyeur.
Yeah, the boy. Yeah.
Which makes us feel implicit in it.
Yeah. Again, to be fair, he does state this at the end, that he was also a coward. He at any time could have just pretended he'd heard screaming from the street as he was cycling by, gone in and stopped that from happening. Yeah. The fact that he didn't, as you say, makes him implicit in it.
Yeah, and the film implicitly makes all of us the bad guys as well.
Yeah, because we're watching.
Watching it, and Monica Bellucci's gorgeous.
Yep.
And because I can say it's most of her scenes are filmed in this voyeuristic camera angle, where we always feel
dirty,
like we're part of the problem. Yeah. It's similar to a film from 1960, and I suddenly can't remember who directed it, so I apologise. But there's a it's not a slasher, but it's sort of like a proto slasher called Peeping Tom. Came out same year as Psycho. It is a British film, I believe. Psycho was the more popular, because believe it or not, Psycho's the more palatable of the two.
Oh.
And to be honest, Psycho is probably better made, because Hitchcock's a fucking master director.
Sure.
Peeping Tom is about a cameraman who goes around killing people with his tripod. His tripod's got, spiked ends.
Right.
Every death scene, I've never seen it, but from the bits I have seen, I believe every death scene is filmed POV from the camera, like it's found footage.
Oh.
This is in 1960.
I mean, that's interesting.
Camera with the tripod protruding from the bottom and stabbed into people, making you, the audience, the killer.
That's really fascinating, actually.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And this is doing a similar thing.
Yeah. You're meant to be implicit in it as well.
Yeah. I want to talk about cinematography. This seems like a good time to go into cinematography.
There's a couple of really clever pieces of cinematography in this, yes.
The film's beautiful. I mean, the setting helps.
Yep.
Because it's this lovely Italian town with these stonework villas, these great big trees that curl out from the one he climbs all the time.
Yeah.
It's this really old, thick tree climbing up the side of this villa.
So one of the things that I did like, it's a very small insert, but early in the film, there's an argument about trouser length. He steals his dad's trousers.
Yeah.
Because apparently he's only wearing short trousers. This must have been a thing at the time. This seems a
Boys
bit odd.
only wore shorts.
Yeah. And so he takes the trousers to get them mended. The first time we get his dad beating him is because he stole his trousers to get them resized for himself. And during that beating, he says, his dad says you can have long trousers the day that Mussolini gets his head cracked in.
Skull cracked.
His
or
skull
something
cracked
like
or
that.
something like that. He goes, is that a promise? He goes, how dare you? Because obviously he's not meant to actually have a comeback or ask him to hold to that promise.
Yeah.
Later on in the film, we're shorts the whole time up to this point in the film where he comes out of the classroom. He's pissed off about
He's
something.
been in a fight. So basically, the teacher, before he dies, Malena's dad, he gets a letter that's been sent to him by one of the obviously jealous women in the town.
That's right,
That says, your daughter has dishonoured your family. She's whoring around with everyone in town, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
One of Renato's friends reads this, and when the dad has left the room, shows off about it. And he's like, oh, I've seen it. She's whoring with everyone in town. That means I've got a chance, blah, blah. And Renato, who's already in his, like, defending her mode, is like, back off, don't say it. They get into a fight.
Yeah.
He then storms out.
Yeah, and when he storms out, he goes down this set of stairs, and there's this Mussolini head. It's a carving.
A bust of Mussolini.
Yeah, and it's on this podium. And as he goes down the steps, he pushes it. It rolls down the stairs, bounces off several of the steps, the old stone marble steps. And as it hits the bottom, it cracks and literally splits in two in a really artistic shot, to be fair.
In a way that, to be fair, is really obvious that it was pre-designed to split that way. Because it's literally smack down the middle.
Yeah, absolute clean cut. However, immediately after that, starts wearing long trousers.
Yeah, because he's split Mussolini's skull.
Yeah, even though Mussolini, I don't think, is literally dead in this part of the story. It just seems
Mussolini
to be...
Mussolini got hung. That's how he died.
Yes. So, but
Joey Tribbiani's grandma was, 10th in line to spit on Mussolini's hanging body or something?
Something like that. But yeah, so I thought that was an interesting little visual, you know, considering that it's very rare that you get that. I did appreciate it.
The performances are all pretty good. I mean, the kid is a good actor, surprisingly.
Yeah.
For as far as child actors go, they're not usually very good.
No.
I really like the bit where after he has first seen Monica Bellucci and her boob pops out and he first, is getting the horn for her, she's listening to a record at that point, and the next day he goes to buy the same record from the record store, and he's like giving the record store owner jip, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's like, whoa, it might be defective. Aren't you going to try it?
He's like, this is brand new.
Yeah, and he makes him play it and stuff.
Yeah.
I think Monica Bellucci's great in this because she's actually got a pretty hard job to do in this, Bellucci, because she actually hardly has any dialogue.
Yeah, she doesn't say very much.
She has very few lines of dialogue in
most
this
of
film.
her dialogue is actually in the court case, and even
in the
then
court
it's only
case
like...
and the rape scene,
Yeah,
when she's begging him to leave her alone.
That's right, yeah. And it's only at points where she's at a severe disadvantage.
Which is going to make... It's going to sound like... People will probably listen to this and go, well, that's not hard then. What Bellucci has to do in this film is almost be an empty slate, but she can't, because she has to be someone where the audience and the characters are projecting all this bullshit onto her.
Yeah.
But that sounds easy, but it's not. You can't just be a block of wood.
Yeah.
Because that would be dull, and that doesn't invite... I don't want to pick on him, but there's a certain actor that we both know, not personally, but we've said on this show multiple times, I'm not going to name him because I'm not going to pick on people, but there was a certain time in the 2000s where Hollywood was desperate to make this guy a big deal, and it never worked.
Yeah.
You watch his films and you're not projecting anything onto him because he doesn't have this charisma that's inviting you to do it.
Yeah.
Monica Bellucci, as Malena, feels mysterious.
Yeah.
She's beautiful, but not in a showy way. It's not like when you watch something like a reality TV show, and it will be these women who are pretty, but it's ostentatious pretty.
Yeah.
They've got the glowing white veneers. They've got 8 nose jobs that they've had.
Yeah.
They've got implants out to here.
There's nothing fake about her.
It's a natural and quiet beauty.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think that's part of the genius of her not really speaking when she has, except when she's at a disadvantage in a weird ways, because that way she doesn't say anything to invite the attention.
Yeah.
Everyone that's something where they have to be projecting it on her, because she's not sitting there going, hey boys, you know, she's done none of that. She just walks from one building to another, says nothing, does nothing special.
Yeah.
She's just a good-looking woman in a nice dress
And
with her
walking.
head held high, walking from one building to another, and everyone in the town is like, that's a slut.
And paradoxically, that makes it worse.
Yeah.
Because she obviously knows what people say about her, and she doesn't care.
Yeah.
But by never denying any of it, by never getting in... Basically, she cannot win. There's no way for her to win. This film is sort of... pretty privilege has recently become a thing.
Yeah.
People talk about pretty privilege.
Yeah.
This film is the dark side of pretty privilege.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, okay, pretty privilege is a thing. It's been demonstrably proven to be a thing. People are nicer generally to people they find attractive.
We said this when we covered Crazy Stupid Love. The reason
With Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling's whole, you want a drink? Yeah, you'll come back with me. That only works because he's shit hot, Ryan Gosling.
When it's Danny DeVito, that's
Creepy.
obnoxious, creepy, and even threatening.
Yeah,
at
so
times.
that is a form of pretty privilege. Women and men have that, but as you say, this is like the opposite side of that coin.
This is a dark side of it where everyone almost wants to... All the men want to possess her.
Yeah.
And all of the women want to project their failings or their insecurities onto her.
Yeah, it's not that they could keep their husbands just by, maybe being nice to their husbands or anything like that, or just by trusting their husbands. It's a case of, no, it's almost like the witch hunt.
Yeah.
She's the witch. You're obviously using some magic or some possessive thing to take my husband from me. She
like
could
you
not
said-
give a shit about any of their husbands.
Like you said, the use of the word siren.
Yes.
She's not interested in their husbands until she is put in a position where she needs to get by, and the only way anyone will let her get by, because I think there is a bit where someone says, one of the many gossips Renato hears, I think there's a bit where someone says they've heard she's looking for a job, as in an honest job, and someone says who the hell would hire her, their wife would kill them, it'd be suicide.
Yeah.
So she can't get a job, which is why she turns to prostitution.
Because she's too pretty, and so... But let's be honest, even if there was a role, like a paying job she could do in an all-woman environment, they wouldn't hire her because of jealousy.
Yeah.
So she would be stuck even if it wasn't a complete misogyny shit show as it is at the time. Yeah, her character is a character that's done very right in terms of how well it's portrayed. Most of them are. I think the only fallbacks I have are Renato not getting any clapback. I still don't understand this need to show sex with children. Even if it's like a coming of age thing, I understand. But we've again,
they don't show it in this cut.
No. But again, taking him to the brothel, that sort of thing, and actually having him look, because we do see him lying naked on the bed, though his junk
Only
is
topless. We only see his.
Well, no, we see his legs as well. It's her arm is in the frame covering up any of
junk.
Yeah. The thing is, though, we don't need to even see that.
Yeah.
It seems like you're treading a dangerous line for no reason to do that.
Yeah.
I think so. In that case, there could have been some smarter direction. But yeah, for the most part, this film achieves its aims very, very strongly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good film. Actually, I enjoyed. Enjoyed is the wrong word, I guess, but
it is very much the same as Once Were Warriors. It's a brilliant film. It does what it aims to do incredibly well, but you can't say you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's not a fun film to watch.
No, you don't sit there going, "Oh, let's go and see a woman get abused today."
Yeah, I bet some sick fucks do.
That's not us.
No. I think that wraps it up for Malena. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen to this episode. We really appreciate it. If you could, please give us a like, share, subscribe, etc. All of the bullshit that people get asked to do all the time on these podcasts, because it really does help us to grow the show. And then we can continue to bring things to you and hopefully bring even more content to you. You can also listen to the Video Game Movie podcast, VGMP, which is our sister show, hosted by myself and Rory again. That is a comedy-themed movie review show in which we look exclusively at movies based on or tangentially related to video games. It's the next big genre. It's the big up-and-comer now that superheroes are dying a death. That's where we're going, video game movies, baby. So get ahead of the train and start reviewing them now. Why not? You can also listen to our full cast audio drama, Haunted the Audio Drama, which is a horror, adventure, comedy, X-Files, Doctor Who type thing. It's not super scary if you're not a big fan of scary things. It's no scarier than, say, the TV show Supernatural. Or even Goosebumps. You're sort of on that sort of level. But that releases episodes every Sunday. We've got 2 full seasons out at the moment, with season 3 currently underway. Until next time then, thank you so much for listening. This is Jamie Evans.
And Rory Johnson.
Signing off. Peace out.